So what is it that temptation can teach us, and why is it such an essential part of the spiritual life? This is Father Mark over at Christ the Redeemer Catholic Church in Thibodaux inside our podcast series entitled Intentional, and on this Monday, the first week of Lent, as well as throughout this entire first week of Lent, we're going to unpack how is it that temptation, which is so much a part of all of our spiritual lives, actually has something to do with God's design for us and helping us grow spiritually. Muscles only grow when they experience resistance, right? One of the essential physical aspects of working out is that your muscles experience resistance against the very thing they're pushing against or pulling against, right? And as those muscles learn how to resist or strengthen against the resistance, then those muscles grow. And the same is true in our spiritual life, right? Whenever you and I learn how to resist, we're actually stronger in the spiritual life because we are choosing to choose in the face of, you might say, something that we want to choose that is against God. You may remember that on last Thursday, I talked about how one of the complications in our interior life is not that we have a desire for God, it's that we have a desire for God and we have a desire for a lot of other things. Right? So when conflicting desires hit our hearts, we have to stay focused on what we want more than the other desires. Likewise, what happens in life itself is we actually begin to cultivate an appetite for sin. There are some particular sins in our life that if we give into temptation over and over and over, we actually cultivate a hunger for that sin, an appetite for that sin. And so we can have a desire for God, but believe it or not, we can actually have a desire for vice. Or we can cultivate a desire specifically for the vice, you might say, that we have given into the most. When we are tempted, and whenever we learn how to resist, specifically you might say with our favorite temptations, we are actually strengthened not only in our desire for God, but our capacity to receive from Him. And let me give you a concrete example. Let's say that there's this fictitious guy out there named Adam, and Adam is a recovering alcoholic. For many years of his life, he exercised and lived in his addiction to alcohol. And he goes to rehab, he decides to get sober, he's working the steps, and he is in an active and fruitful AA program with a really helpful sponsor. It's a Tuesday morning and Adam wakes up and he has a fight with his wife, Eve. And throughout the entire day, he's just irritated, he's frustrated with the argument, and he feels unresolved throughout the day. He's driving home from work on that Tuesday, and he passes the favorite bar that he used to stop at and forget about life as he poured himself into alcohol. He passes that bar, he makes his way home, and now it's Tuesday night, and he and his wife, because they don't really have strong communication skills, don't talk things out. They just kind of ignore each other. On his way to work on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, the same things happen. More tension with his wife builds, more quick arguments happen as he leaves work. And now on this Friday, as this has just been building all week long, all he can think about on that Friday is knocking off of work at noon, which he usually does, and stopping by that bar and just having one beer. Because that's how he used to forget about the arguments. And all Friday morning long, he's beginning to almost compulsively think about that drink. Sure enough, it's noon and he knocks off of work and he's driving home, and he's at this traffic light where on his left he can pull into the parking lot of the bar, or he can go straight home. He takes the left at the light and is now parked in the parking lot of the bar, and he's watching his friends who he works with, who also are alcoholics. They're all pouring into the bar together. And he stays there, and he stays there, and he stays there. And he chooses to go home instead of going in the bar. He gets home, he's by himself, and he begins to process the victory that is now part of his sobriety by facing temptation and choosing his wife or sobriety. And regardless of how things unfold with Adam at home with his wife, the victory there is he faced temptation, and he's a better, you might say, recovering alcoholic because he faced temptation than he was prior to. If you and I learn, like Adam, how to choose God in the face when we want to choose other things, it deepens our desire for God and our receiving him, not only in moments of temptations, but in other moments in life. So you see, temptation, or more specifically, learning how to resist temptation, has something to teach us in our spiritual life. Yesterday, I encouraged you to look back on your history of temptation. I want you to do that today. How do you feel about resisting temptation, and when do you do that well, and when do you not do that? Spend some time tonight looking back on your history of resisting. Not just your history of temptation and giving in, but what's your history of resisting temptation? Come on back tomorrow as we continue to have conversations about temptation and growing in our ability to choose God. And until that conversation happens, God bless you.